Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Off the Shelf. I am Dawn Gepfer, your host of today's program, which is brought to you by the Atlanta chapter of Sisters in Crime. Sisters in Crime is an international organization that was founded to support and promote the professional development and advancement of women crime writers. Since its inception in 1986, which is 40 years ago, membership has expanded to include all genders and any and all who are advocates for equality in mystery and crime writing publishing. Members include writers, those who are published and those who aspire to be, agents, editors, booksellers, librarians, but most importantly, readers. And why do I consider readers the most important members of Sisters in Crime? Well, that's because where is a book without a reader? It's on the shelf. And our goal of today's program is to get our guest authors' books off the shelf and into the hands of our reading audience. And I truly hope we are successful with that today because I think we have a fascinating author with us. I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Jennifer Jabaley. She is the author of the international bestseller, Which Yours Is Mine. This is her adult domestic suspense debut. Her first two young adult novels received multiple awards, including the Georgia Author of the Year and the Pennsylvania Reader's Choice. She is originally from Bridgewater, New Jersey, and she now lives in the Georgia Blue Ridge Mountains, where she practices optometry with her husband and is the mom of two. Aside from writing in her spare time, she plays tennis, she reads, and she is a dedicated sports mom. Welcome to Off the Shelf, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so thrilled to be here.
I appreciate you being here, especially when I mentioned that you're the mom of two, you're a dedicated sports mom. And I know that when we were trying to schedule this and get you on the program, we were navigating your children's schedule.
That's correct, which is pretty dicey. Yeah, we have a very active, busy household here. And today's prom for our school. So I'll be leaving here and joining my daughter and her friends for pictures. Hopefully, navigating the weather. Hopefully, the rain will stop.
Absolutely. I definitely want the rain to not be an issue for prom tonight, but I also don't want it to be an issue for the Braves game because the Braves
Yeah.
play tonight and
Mhm.
I work for them. And
Oh, do you? Oh, that's cool.
when we have rain delays, it's not fun. And
Right.
I'm manager on duty tonight, so I'm being particularly selfish with that wish. So one thing I would like to say to our audience before we get started, this is meant for you to participate in this conversation just as much as it's meant for me to be talking with Jennifer. So if you have any questions, you can raise your virtual hand, and we will call on you, or you can put your question in the chat box. We'll be keeping an eye on it. We will ask it on your behalf. And you can also just speak up if that's what you feel compelled to do. And so please participate in this conversation. So, shall we get started?
Sure, sounds great.
Okay, so uh, we have recently realigned our program to where we start off our conversation with our authors by asking them some questions to get to know them a little bit better.
Great.
And we have called this segment the interrogation room.
Oh, wow. Okay. I love it. I love
Jennifer,
it.
are you prepared for the interrogation
I
room?
guess so. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay, so these are meant to just be quick answered questions, but feel free to elaborate as much as you'd like.
Okay.
So, are there any authors that you consistently read?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I'm a huge reader, and I think any good writer is a huge reader. And I always, at all times, have a physical book going and an audiobook going. So I'm always doing two different books. And I usually try to balance where, like, I'll do one thriller or crime book and then I'll have a different genre so that I don't kind of get them confused. But there are definitely certain authors that I always gravitate toward. Probably my two favorite authors are both Australian, which I don't, I'm not Australian. I've never been to Australia, but I really love Leanne Moriarty and I love Sally Hepworth. And both of them, I feel, are similar in my vein in that they are suspense writers, domestic suspense, but they're not, they're kind of light and page turning and yeah, and I love them. I also love Richard Osman, the 30 Thursday Murder Club. Read
Yes.
those are phenomenal on audiobook. And being a big audiobook person, I've really enjoyed the author is Jessie Sutana, I think the Vera Wong series. So funny, but a mystery. So I tend to like the crime and the mystery that have great characters.
Right up our alley here at Sisters in Crime.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so if you could meet any author, living or dead, who would it be?
Oh, just one?
Oh, you can tell me how many. Whoever you want. Yeah.
Okay. You
Go.
know, like you frequently will get that, or the people will ask you a question, like if you could have a dinner party with,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes, I would have a very interesting group. So I would definitely invite the two Australian, Leanne Moriarty and Sally Hepworth. I
Mhm.
would invite Reese Witherspoon because
Oh.
I love her, and she had her first adult thriller come out with Harlan Coben, who I would invite him too because I love Harlan Coben, and I would invite James Patterson. I met James Patterson at Thriller Fest last year, and he is crazy, like in the best way. Like he's so funny and fun and interesting and brilliant.
Mhm.
So I
I
think
think
that'd be a good mix.
I think that would be a good mix too. And I also think that James Patterson would be intimidating because he has done so much and he's written so much. And you made reference to the fact that Reese put out a book. I think she put it out with him?
She put it out with Harlan Coben.
Oh, with Harlan Coben. Okay, but James
Mhm.
Patterson, well, he's another one you'd be intimidated by. But James Patterson has been working with like other writers for a while,
Mhm.
partnering with them, and some of them are on the celebrity spectrum. So
Yes.
yeah, I mean, very
Yeah.
well connected and I'm sure quite interesting. And I've never had the pleasure, so I am jealous that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the thing is, you say intimidating. Listening to him speak, he was very humble and also so conversational. So he was speaking off the cuff and he just seemed very approachable. And yeah, I don't know. I really, really liked him. I gained a lot of course, I have a lot of respect for him and for what
Mhm,
he's done. But after listening to him and seeing him, it
mhm.
elevated my respect for him.
Well, I think that's great. That's amazing. What an experience that
Yes.
you had. Um, mine is Dennis Lehane, and
Okay.
I would like trip over myself and be act like an idiot if I was ever in his presence. So, just saying.
There you
Oh.
go.
So, what is something that you allow yourself to splurge on?
To splurge on. Well, my husband would probably say everything. I've not been known to, be a budget shopper. Um, no, seriously, I think it is important to give yourself some self care. And we have an excellent spa here in Blue Ridge. And occasionally my girlfriends and I will have a spa day and just get a massage. And it's just a good social, but it's also taking care of
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
So I definitely do that. Not as often as I would like. I
Mhm.
also like to splurge on nice family vacations.
Mhm. Oh,
Mhm.
good. Where's
Yeah.
somewhere you've gone recently that
Oh gosh, we did an amazing trip a few years ago with a group called Austin Adventures. And so it's like small groups, like there was maybe three families and three guides, and they took us all through, we're a very active family. They took us through Yellowstone and Montana, and we
wow.
did horseback riding, whitewater rafting, hiking. It was so fun. It was so fun.
And was that how long of a vacation was that? Because it sounds like he did a lot.
Yeah, it was like 7 days. But it
Okay.
was action packed. Yeah,
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
Well, that's great. I think we should make note of that and maybe give them a call.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I highly recommend them as a company for tour guides.
So this next question is it has more to do with your writing. So when
Okay.
you are writing, are you a computer or pen and paper writer?
I am pen and paper. Yeah, 100%. And I know people think that's crazy. Maybe it's archaic. I am happy to report that I'm not the only one. Someone told me Ellen Hildebrand writes all her books on yellow lined paper. I cannot, for whatever reason, at a blank screen on a computer, I cannot be creative. So I handwrite, and then I typically voice dictate into the computer. So I think because I am so audio based, I do so many audiobooks, that is almost an editorial step, because when you're reading your work, you'll notice what doesn't work, especially with dialogue. You'll be like, "Oh, that's terrible." And you'll go back and change it. And then I print it out. Once I get it into a document, then I print it out and then I edit on paper.
That's a great tip. I think for those in the audience that are writers or aspiring writers, I think that's a great tip because you're absolutely right. When I'll throw something down and then I will recite it and
Mm-hmm.
I'll realize that it doesn't flow or it's awkward. And that is a great tip. So is there a particular software you use for the dictation?
So I used to use Dragon voice
Yeah.
dictation. I used that for a very long time. And then now they have, I write in Microsoft Word, and they have added a dictation software to Microsoft Word. So I've just been using that. Is it perfect? It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. hmm
Yeah.
hmm
Thank, th- Thank you, Microsoft. You are amazing. They really are. Okay, so are you a plotter or a pantser?
Okay, I am a plotter. Totally. I am proud. And actually, speaking of James Patterson, his masterclass, he talks about on masterclass.com, he talks about how he writes and how he does a very intensive outline. And that is exactly what I do. I start, when I come up with an idea, I let it marinate for a while to make sure, because you're going to spend a lot of time on a project, so you have to really make sure that you connect with it.
Mhm.
And once I think, okay, yes, this is going to be my next project, I typically will sit down and I'll write like 5 bullet points, like your five major plot points of the whole book.
Mhm.
And then once I have like the 5 pillars, then I start breaking it out. I often use Save the Cat, the
Mhm.
beats. So I'll go from the 5 to the Save the Cat beats. And then from there, I go into a chapter by chapter outline. So when I have a chapter outline, it really is almost like a first draft. It's that specific. And then once I have my chapter outline, then I start actually writing. Oh, I saw someone say, "What is Save the Cat?"
Yeah.
I probably have it right here. Hold on one sec. I'll show you. Yeah, here it is. Um, got my little notes on it. Okay, so this is, if any writers out there, this is, if you are a plotter, this is an invaluable craft book. So Save the Cat, it was the first book, and it was screenwriting. So it talked a lot about writing TV pilots and movies. And then so many people used that for novels. They went and did a novel. But basically, what it does is it tells you how every single successful movie or successful novel, typically follows a plot strategy. And of course, you put your own stamp on it, but it tells you where the inciting incident should fall in your pages. It tells you what should happen at the midpoint, and it's a very good structure. If you are a plotter and a structure person, it helps tremendously.
And so, can you explain the beat reference?
Sure. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, I think, 12 what they call beats, which means plot points. Here we go. Okay. So, like in this book, it will take a novel that you've read. So I just opened to the page, and this one happens to be The Kite Runner, which incidentally is one of my favorite books. And it breaks it down and shows you how the Kite Runner follows these beats. So the first beat is your opening image, your second beat is your setup, and then your third beat is a theme stated. Your fourth beat is the catalyst. So the catalyst is your inciting incident. And then the fifth beat is your debate. So, for example, for anyone who's, I didn't know it's going to be doing a little course.
Yeah.
For anyone who's,
instruction. Mm-hmm.
yeah, who's read The Kite Runner. So it says here, the catalyst is after running the kite, Hassan goes missing and Amir sets off to try to find him. So that's your catalyst.
Okay.
And then the next beat is your debate. The debate question of this novel is, what will Amir do about what he saw?
Okay.
So anyway, it just goes through, and it's so specific. It tells you what pages, this particular plot point should fall around the 100-page mark in a 350-page novel. It is an exceptional craft book.
Well, speaking of craft books, what are some, well, first off, I'm very curious how you stumbled upon that book. And at what point in your writing did you stumble on that book and say, hey, this is something I'm going to teach myself and follow?
Sure. So way back a gazillion years ago, when I wrote my first YA book, I had no, I did not take any writing classes. I was a chemistry major and then went to optometry school, but I've always been a reader. And that's why I say when you read a lot, you don't even realize you're teaching yourself. You're teaching yourself how to write. So when I sat down to write my first YA, I just wrote. And I didn't really have a plan. I didn't think I was trying to get published. I don't know what I was doing. I was in postpartum delirium. So when I finished it and I gave it to my best friend to read, and she's like, you should try to get this published. It's really good. And so I went to my first conference, which was a Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators conference. And I paid to have like a critique with an editor. And the editor told me about the Save the Cat and the beats. And that's when and it was so interesting how when I went back and read my manuscript, I innately followed a lot of that natural pattern of a book because I had read so much, but I really learned a lot. So that became kind of instrumental. And of course it works for me because I am very type A. I want to follow a structure. Now that doesn't mean you can't veer off path, but I could never be a pantser. I am like such a gabber and such a talker. My books would be 1,000 pages long if I didn't have a structure. So,
are there any other craft books aside from Save the Cat that
I'm going right back into my little
yeah.
Here we go. So
your little arsenal behind you.
My arsenal behind me. Absolutely. Okay. So of course, everybody who is a writer needs to read Bird by Bird, right? That's like a classic. And then this is like an older one, but I really love it. Writing the Breakout Novel by Donald Moss. He is a very famous agent. And basically, this kind of talks about how you find a good premise. Because if you want to be published, it's so hard and it's so competitive. And you have to have a premise that's concise, that agents will, look at that one-liner or two-liners and be like, oh yeah, That's interesting. That's high concept.
Mhm.
So that kind of goes into that. Here's the original Save the Cat, which was it's by Blake Snyder. So it's on screenwriting, but you can use
Mhm.
it for a novel. You see, like
Mhm.
I've dog-eared, and look at this, I have all notes all over the place. And then I love Story Genius. So Story Genius is different. It's less plot and structure, and this is more going into character arc.
Mhm.
So I find the books that I love the most, they tend to fall in the mystery and suspense, and even maybe thriller category, but they tend to be very character heavy,
Mhm.
as opposed to some of the more straight up like political thrillers or crime thrillers. I love characters. So that book really talks about how you make your character growth, the internal growth
Mhm.
and the external growth. So then you kind of merge that
Mhm.
with the plot books, and those are my go-tos.
Very good advice. Thank you so much. I know that we will all be making note and looking into those books. So I appreciate that. And that
Of
wasn't
course.
something I meant to talk about, but it
Yeah,
got brought up and I was like, hey, let's go there. So,
absolutely.
you mentioned the premise.
Hmm.
And so let's go ahead and jump into your book, What's Yours Is Mine.
Hmm.
And let's talk about how that came to be.
Okay. So interestingly enough, when I was writing my YA books, after I wrote my second book, I was kind of gnawing on ideas for a third book. And I loved the idea of friends who were also rivals.
Mhm.
So, friends competing for the same thing. And I kind of pitched it to my editor at the time. And that was the time when the Hunger Games had come out, and everything was kind of going into a really dark world in YA. And it just wasn't what I really was interested in writing. So I stopped writing YA. I stopped writing for a little while. My kids were young, I was working. But I always loved this idea: can you be friends with someone when you want the same thing?
Mhm.
So this always kind of stuck in the back of my mind. So then when I decided I wanted to write adult, which is really what I read, that idea kept coming up, but I knew I wanted to write adult. But then I thought, ooh, what if you're the mother or mothers of two best friends who are also competing for the same thing?
Mhm.
And how do you navigate that? At that time, so our family, we're a big sports family, like you said in the beginning. At that time, my nephew, who is not my bloodline, I'm a small person. The Jabaleys are big, gigantic people. And he is 6'6", 300 pounds, and he was being recruited for college football.
Mhm.
And I was witnessing this process from, behind the scenes. And I remember saying to my husband, these people are crazy. like, because all the parents thought my kids are going to go to a D1 Power 5 school. They're going to go to the NFL. They're spending thousands of dollars on like specialty knee braces, and it was a little bit nuts.
Mhm.
And then around that, my kids were younger. Um, and then all of a sudden, like my daughter started getting older, and it became clear that she had the Jabaley athletic gene, and she started playing tennis, and she plays basketball too. And a tennis coach who had moved here from California gave her a few lessons, and he was like, "Oh my God, look at her feet." And I'm like, "What do you mean, look at her feet?" And he's like, "Look at her feet." He's like, "She's got no limits." And I went home and I was like, "Chris, she's got no limits." then my daughter was like, I really don't want to play tennis. Like tennis is fun, but I was like, oh my God, like how easy you could slip into that world.
Mhm. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of the genesis of if you had two moms, like one who was kind of like how I was originally, like, this is so impractical and you're spending all this money on this pipe dream. And then there's this other mother who's all in.
Mhm.
And wouldn't that be interesting?
Mhm.
So that was how it all kind of came about.
Right. So it is identified as adult domestic suspense.
Yes.
So we
Hmm.
know that there's something
Right.
more to this than a relationship analysis of, competition.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
here's where,
Okay.
the Donald Moss premise comes in. So the idea is what happens when these two girls are competing for a competition and the one mom will do anything to have her daughter be a star. The other mom doesn't really want her daughter to participate in this.
Mhm.
And 1 week before the competition, one of the girls gets attacked and the mother thinks it's the other girl and the other mother.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Wow. All right. I just kind of got chills when you said that.
Like, what would you do to make sure your daughter succeeds? If her best friend now becomes
Wow.
her biggest competition, what will you do to make her daughter succeed?
So, from a perspective of a sports mom,
Hmm.
and what is your knowledge and your relationship with the dance? Because these are two competitive dancers.
Hmm.
Yeah. So what is from real life, where
Hmm.
is Jen Jabaley in the dance
World.
competitive dance world? Yes.
Yeah. So when I knew I wanted to write this story about, and it was sort of like Tanya Harding, if you remember that, like
Yeah.
pitched as a Tanya Harding, um,
Hmm.
Nancy Kerrigan sort of thing.
Hmm.
I knew I didn't want to do ice skating because then that would be too,
Obvious.
obvious. I also did not want to pick a sport that any of my kids or even my nieces and nephews participated in because I certainly didn't want to think anyone to think I was writing about them. So that knocked out a lot of sports because we cover a lot of we do baseball, we do football, we do track, tennis, and basketball.
Wow.
So then there also was an element in the book where you had to pick a sport where you don't earn your spot. So for example, in tennis, if you win, you win. In track or cross country, if you get a time, you win. I had to find an endeavor where a coach or an instructor played a part of, oh, I'm going to put you in the lead because
Mm.
that stirred the pot even more. If one of the girls got picked for the lead but the mom thought their daughter deserved the lead, oh, then the tension
Hmm.
elevated. And
Yeah.
did the mom pay off the instructor to put her daughter in the lead? So yeah, so dance just became easy to slide into that. Originally, I did it as ballet, but then the encouragement of my agent said competitive dance is so popular right now, and that she thought that would be a little bit even more,
Mhm.
people understand that a little bit more.
So, not being familiar with that particular sport, how did you educate yourself on it in order to write about it?
I had to do a lot of research. So there was a couple of shows. There was a show, I forget if it was Hulu, that it was a reality show that followed a very high end competitive dance studio in Australia, I think it was. That was super interesting. And then I have a very good friend of mine from college. Her son is well, they're in Boston, and he was doing all of this. He was like involved in all of this dance competition. And he now is actually in New York City at Al, Alvin Alley, which I use that in the book.
Hmm.
But I would swing some questions by her, and she was very good at telling me what lingo to use. So, for example, I said, okay, like I was just talking to you before, like, so if they have a recital and the instructor picks one, and she said, Jen, it is not a recital. She said, this is not Sally's dance studio on the corner of a small town. She said, it is a gala. I was like, okay. So I had to do a lot of research because my daughter is a tomboy. Like we did no dance, and I never did dance. So I had no experience.
Yeah, well, you did a great job with it. So
Thank you.
that's why what the audience doesn't know is prior to us going live with you guys, I kind of touched base with Jen and I was like, is it okay to talk about the sport itself and how knowing that she had children who were in sports, like I was like, is it okay to navigate in that direction? She was like, absolutely. I don't know anything about it. Yeah, that's not our experience. And I was like, okay, good. So I also think that's very interesting when a writer is able to do that and to
Mhm.
do it so effectively. So
Thank you.
kudos.
Well, thank you. I think there's people always hear write what you know. And
Mhm.
I disagree with that because um, I, I, I think my world would be kind of boring. What am I going to do? Write a story about optometry? No. But I think if you identify with the emotions, then you can write anything. You can write anything.
Mhm.
So I just had to research the setting and the specifics,
Mhm.
but the emotions of wanting your child to succeed, of wanting to protect your child, of anger if you feel like someone took something from your child. I think any mother could relate to those
Mhm.
emotions.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Mhm.
you've nailed it. I
Thank
think
you.
what you just said nails it and is a good um, thought process. Again, right, moving forward as a writer, I think that's uh, ideal. What
Thank
you
you.
said. You also mentioned something. You said that you had to like familiarize yourself or research the setting, and
Mhm.
that I want to take to that thought. I want to take that to one of your young adult books.
Okay.
I think it's the second one, the
Crush control.
crush control. And is that the book where you set the story? It might be the first one, sorry. It might
Okay.
be Lipstick Apology, where you set the story in New York.
That's
And
lipstick
it
apology.
was, you specifically said it in Manhattan, and
Hmm.
then someone in the book industry said, "Hey, good story, but we want to change the setting." Which book is
So,
that?
so that was lipstick apology, and
Okay.
originally I wrote it where she has to move. So her parents die. She has to move in with her aunt, and her aunt was living on the Upper East Side. And the editor said, "What was that series? There was a series that had just come out that was all on the Upper East Side. It was a TV show too, and I can't
Hmm.
believe I can't remember it. But she said, "Can you move it to a different area in the city?" And I said, "Okay, like where?" And she said, "Why don't you go to like the West Village?" She said that's kind of a real up and coming popular area. So I said, "Sure." So I did take a trip up to New York. I have my sister and brother live in New Jersey. So um, I went up, but I walked through the West Village so I could see the streets. I could, feel the vibe. But that was a long time ago. Now you can get on Google Earth. It's amazing. You can go put me on this street. I mean, it is really incredible.
Yeah. Was it your editor who made the suggestion to
Yes.
change? Okay.
Hmm.
So that kind of threw you a curveball.
Yeah.
And and I love what you did. And I love that you said, okay, I'm gonna take your suggestion and I'm gonna make it work. And you familiarized yourself with it. And you're so correct that these days we definitely have technology on our side that allows us to do things that we didn't get to used to do. But I think what's more important to me right now in this comment is that you pivoted
Hmm.
and you said, okay, let's go for it. Let's do it. Let's, massage this in a different direction. And
Hmm.
just kind of curious, how did that feel, if you recall, because you said it was a long time ago. How did that
Well,
feel, do you think, in the moment?
okay, I'm going to give you a different example
Okay.
because so I just posted yesterday. I got my second book deal for with my publisher for
Congratulations.
thank you for my next adult novel. And when I submitted this manuscript to my editor, I think it was in the fall, and I had pitched it to her. She loved the pitch. She read the manuscript, and we Zoomed in January. And she said, Jen, love this. Definitely want to take this to try to get it, bought. I don't like the ending. And the ending was kind of in a similar vein to What's Yours Is Mine. It was kind of like a big surprise ending. And she's like, I don't like this ending because and I said, but that's why it's a twist. And she said, I just don't think our readers will like that. And she said, if you're willing to rework the ending, I will take this to the marketing and sales and see if we can buy it. So I said, let me think on it. Because that was tough. That was really tough. But what I have learned through writing so many years is a lot of times editors and agents are correct. They really are. And so I sat down, I pulled in some of my writer friends and I said, we need to brainstorm. And one of my good friends came up with a good, what about this? And then I kind of thought about it. And so I Zoomed my editor and I said, what do you think about this? And she said, oh, yeah, I think I like that. And she said, okay. And so I've been rewriting it, it was a pretty huge rewrite. And you know what? I love it. Like, I think I even love it better. So I think you just have to be open. And I'm not saying that you have to change everything that somebody tells you to change, but you need to be open to ideas because sometimes it works out better.
Mhm. So you've mentioned writer friends, and so it sounds like you have a writer community
I
that
do.
you are a participant in. Tell us about that.
Listen, if you're going to be a writer, you have to have community. You just have to. So my closest group of writer friends, I met at a conference at Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators in Atlanta. It was around the time that I was writing Lipstick Apology. So that had to have been 2009. It was a long time ago. And at first, we just kind of met each other, like literally just met each other at the conference, hit it off, and then, kept in touch via email. And then we met again at a conference. And then we started to establish kind of a pattern. And then maybe around, what is it, 2026? So maybe around like 2014, we started doing writer retreats.
Oh.
And the four of us have gotten together once a year, every year since 2014. And through time, that has become not just writer friends, but they've become dear friends. One of mine, she lives in Atlanta, and then the other two live in Mississippi. And I mean, we talk every day. We text, we have like a constant group message going. And one of the girls is excellent with crime. Like she watches true crime, and she'll tell me, like, I'll be like, what was hair fiber analysis like in 1996? And she'll be like, oh yeah, they couldn't do DNA, they could do, and then like the other one's really good with character, and we just help each other. And two of the girls are still writing children's, and me and another girl moved to adult. So
Mhm.
you just have to have community because this industry is very hard. It's hard. And it can be solitary.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
now in the world of online, you can find groups online. There are so many reader groups, there are writer groups.
Hmm.
Um, but you have to find your tribe.
You this is a little early to usually I save this for the end, but you mentioned it, so we're going to go there. Reader groups. So
Mhm.
that's kind of what this is.
Uh-huh.
This is an outlet that we created for our reader members to get to know an author better, which you have been amazing at. But we also have, so we have this off the shelf. This is one of our reader programs. And we also have another program called Murder by the Book.
Mm.
And what that is once a month, it's the first Saturday of every month at 10 o'clock by Zoom, free, open to the public, just like this is. And we talk about what we've read
Oh,
and
fun.
whether or not we recommend it. And I had mentioned to you that I was going to ask you,
I need to
and
write this down. It's so the first of the month, Murder by the
Mhm.
Book. Okay.
Yeah, Murder
Cool.
by the Book. It's on Zoom. You can join
Yeah.
from anywhere. And yeah, so I would love to ask you
Uh-huh.
if there is a book you have read recently. It doesn't even have to be recently, but is there a book that you've read that you recommend? Because that's really what we're doing is we're telling people, oh, I read this and I really liked it, or I read it, I didn't get it, and
Yeah.
so it's a good conversation for
Yeah.
readers. So do you have anything to share
So
about
I just this morning
that?
I was walking my dogs in the rain and I was listening to my audiobook and I just finished My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. Oh my. Oh my. It was like, an author I didn't mention that I do on audio all the time. I like her on audio is Frida McFadden.
Oh.
And Frida McFadden is known for her incredible, explosive twists. I am very good at figuring books out, and Frida McFadden, I can really not figure out ever. And this one, My Husband's Wife, I did not. It was along that vein. If you like Frida McFadden, you will love this book. It is so twisty and turny, like where I had to pause for a minute and like rewind. Like, did I miss something? Like, it was very well done.
I think mystery writers in general like that challenge of trying to
Hmm.
figure it out,
Hmm.
before the
Hmm.
author tells us. So I haven't read Frida McFadden. I've heard a lot about her. I see her books all over, and I have read Alice Feeney before. But thank you for making that recommendation because I like to be surprised. I like it when I don't figure it out just as much as
Hmm.
I like it when I do.
Hmm. Yep, yep, yep. Good, good.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the writing journey. So we talked about the fact that you started out in young adult, and
Yes,
that was in the around 2009. You said that was
yes,
your around your first book, and
yes.
then you wrote a second young
Mhm.
adult. Let's talk first about what led you to young adult initially.
Hmm. So this is interesting. So when I brought up before that I had written it and I decided, oh, I'm going to try to get it published, and I went to a conference. So, and I think earlier I made a mistake. It was not a children's book conference. It was a regular writing It might have been like Atlanta Writers
Oh,
Conference.
mm-hmm.
And I sat with an editor. I had written it as an adult book. I had written that book from the point of view of the aunt. And the editor, who had read like I don't know, 50-page clip or something, said, young adult is very hot right now. And I think this would work well as young adult. And I think you should flip it and write it from the teenager's point of view. And so I took that piece of advice and I did that. That's another pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked well for that book. When I went to try to write my second book in the YA space, I found it like a little, I don't know, difficult. Even though I feel, what's yours is mine has a teenage character. Um, I don't know. I just feel like I was meant to write in the adult world. So after that second book, I just said, I really don't feel as comfortable writing in the YA world. Um, so that was when I took some time off. And so I separated from my agent and my editor. I was with Penguin and kind of left that editor and left that agent because that agent was a children's agent. And then took some time off and wrote a manuscript. It was not What's Yours Is Mine. And it was starting all over. I mean, I had to get a new agent, I had to start all over. And I put this out there because if anyone who's listening is an aspiring writer, I had like a dream agent, and I landed her. She was huge. I mean, she represented all of the authors that I would love to be comped next to. And she tried to sell that project and it didn't sell.
Mm.
And she was very intimidating to me because she was such a big wig. And she just said, put it aside and start something new. And so I started What's Yours Is Mine. And I couldn't even get her to read it because I think because that first book didn't sell, I sort of like trickled all the way to the very bottom. And I was telling my friends and my writer community that I was going to leave her and try to find a new agent. And everyone was like, no, like, don't. It's so hard to get an agent. Like, and you've got a very big agent. Like, don't. But I tell you this to say, like, having no agent is better than having an agent that's not right for you. And she just, even though she was an amazing agent for other people, sorry, hold on. She was an amazing agent for other people. She was not the right agent for me. Mm-hmm. So I took the chance and I separated from her, and boy, everything had changed. It was like now with the advent of so much information on the internet, so many people are trying to get agents. It was not easy. It took me like a while. But then I landed the agent that was able to sell the book for me, the agent that I feel comfortable with, I'm not intimidated by. So, I say that to say, is it a hard process trying to find the right agent for you? It is, but you have to go with your gut and you have to find what works for you. So it was not an easy process, but in the end, it was worth it.
And you trusted your instincts, which is really, really good. And I'm wondering if part of one of the reasons you have been so successful in navigating all of this is it because you also have this background as a business owner? And now I'm making an assumption here that your optometry business is a family business. You and your husband.
Yeah, it is. Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, because you really seem to have a level head about it and a logical way of thinking through it. I think that there's a lot of emotion tied, of course, when you're putting a product out there and someone's like, yeah, we like it, but we want to change it and we want to make it this. I think if you're not strong in your conviction with it, that you could make some changes that you're not comfortable with because you're trying to,
So I think it's very interesting that you bring that up because when I first started with this, the writing industry, as I said previously, like I have a chemistry degree. I'm like, when you are in science, there's a right answer. Like there is a right answer. And in writing, there is not a right answer. That was really difficult to swallow. But once you accept that you could do everything right, you could write like a story that you think is amazing. There is always going to be someone out there that doesn't like it. And that's not a reflection of you as a person. Mm-hmm. And it takes a while to learn that. So once I accepted that, I have to write what's true to me. I have to follow the path that's true to me. And it might not be with this person or with this publisher. And like with What's Yours Is Mine, we were out on submission. So for people who understand the submission process, the agent sends your manuscript to a bunch of editors, and then you hope and pray that someone wants to buy it. In this magical, like world, you hope for what's called an auction, which means more than one person wants it. And that's when it can drive like the price up. And we went out on submission, and I had a couple of rejections, but I was still out with 5 or 6 editors when the editor from Lake Union came in with an offer. And I spoke to her on the phone, and I loved her. And she said something to me that changed everything. She said, "Yeah, your writing style," she said, it's a beach read, but there's a shark in the water." And I was like, that is so perfect. You get me. And so I went to my agent and I said, "I want to go with her." And she said, "You've got it out with 5 other people." Like, and I said, "I don't care." Like, could I have maybe gone to auction or gone to a different house? Maybe. But when I found something that felt right to me, that's what I wanted. So sometimes you have to just carve your own path.
Yeah. And good for you. And you're doing it very well. Um,
Thank you.
so very excited to hear because one of the questions we ask as we are wrapping up, and yes, we are getting to the end of the hour, so it is time to start wrapping it up. Is what is next? And you've alluded to it. You let us know that there's something, but tell us more about the next project.
Sure. So the next project is about a former juror who, on her deathbed, asks the help of her hospice nurse to go back and re-examine a murder case she sat on the jury for because she thinks they convicted an innocent woman.
Oh
So
my.
it's written in dual time periods. So one is the present day with the juror, and 30 years prior, you walk through this love story that ended in murder. Um, so I think one of the reasons why my editor was really excited about it is because it's written in the 90s. And if you've watched Love Story on Hulu with it's the JFK Jr.
Oh yeah.
Carolyn Bessette, which
Yeah.
blew up, uh, it's kind of has that vibe. You have a very wealthy man and a girl from the wrong side of the tracks that fall in love, and the ex-girlfriend enters into tried to break them up, and then the ex-girlfriend is found dead, and they charge the girl with murder.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
it's fun. It's fun. I love it, and it's a different ending than I originally thought, but I think it's going to be great. So thank you.
So, do you have a title for it yet?
Well, okay, I titled it Two Loves and a Lie, but my editor just said a book in their imprint came out, Two Truths and a Lie, just came out literally like 2 weeks
Oh.
ago, and she
Mhm.
thought it might be too similar, so I might have to retitle it, which
Mhm.
stinks because I like that title.
Yeah, and based on what you told us, it definitely makes sense.
Hmm.
So two questions about that. The first one
Hmm.
is, where did that idea come from? That is pretty,
Thank you.
yeah.
Where did that come from? So, I do remember. So do you remember the whole serial podcast that like blew up many, many years ago, where they went in and they re-examined this case where a guy was in jail and they were trying to prove that he was innocent.
Yes.
I write little post-it notes and stick them all over the place like I found earlier. And I had written on a post-it note, what if someone who was on the jury now thinks they made a mistake? And
Oh.
so I stumbled upon that and I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Um, and then at the time, Emily Henry, if you read her at all, she's
Mhm.
like romance, and she had really blown up as this romance writer. And I thought, well, that would be fun to kind of show this romance that you don't expect to end
Mhm.
in murder. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, I don't know. I pay attention to things. I listen to people. I write stuff down, and then you just let your mind go crazy.
So the second part of that question made me, because we were talking about the title, made me think about how you came up with the title for What's Yours Is Mine. Like, where did that come from?
That was my husband. Oh, I hate to give him credit. He's very good with titles. And I'm trying to think. I was having a really tough time trying to figure out a title, and I was, telling him he hadn't read it, and he came up with it, and I was like, "Boom, that's perfect." Yeah, kind of like the swap on what's supposed to be what's mine is yours.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did I say it right when I
Oh, you
repeated
did. You
it?
totally
Okay.
did. Yeah, yeah.
As I was like researching and stuff, I kept doing that. I kept flipping the title around. I'd be like, no, that's not what it is. So I was afraid I would mispronounce it when we were talking. So we are at the end of our hour. Once again, I thank you so much for carving out the time to join us today, especially knowing everything that is going on. This is a big day in your
Oh,
family.
thank you. Well,
It,
I appreciate it so much. Thank you so much. This has just been wonderful. You've been such a great hostess, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get word about my book out. It's in this day and age, it's hard for a new author to get visibility, and so things like this mean so much to an author. Thank you.
well, you are very welcome. And again, I thank you for taking the time to be with us. Because, like I said, I know when we were trying to find the right day, like, oh, there's this month. Nope, that's not going to work. How about this month? Nope. Okay, how about here? So we finally landed on something, and I'm so very grateful. You are a delight to chat with.
Oh,
Uh,
thank you.
Definitely looking forward to what else is going to come from you in your writing world. And also, I just want to throw it out there that if you are looking for more of a writing community, we would love for you to join us with
I am
Sisters in Crime.
100% wrote it down. I'm gonna do it.
Awesome. Good, 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 good. And likewise, for everybody in the audience, you are welcome to join Sisters in Crime as well. Atlanta chapter. Our meetings are virtual every other month. They are on the second Saturday of the month. And then on the opposite months, we meet in person and have social time. So you can check us out at our website, which is sistersInCrimeAtlanta.com. And we would love again, the more the merrier. So please, oh, and Tanisha put it in the chat uh, for anybody. SistersInCrimeAtlanta.com. We would love to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And like I said, looking forward to the
Thank you.
next Jennifer Jabaley to
Thank
come
you
our
so
way.
much. Appreciate it. You have a great day.
Thank you. You too.